In April 1912, the Titanic left Southampton as a floating promise of engineering confidence, class luxury, and modern speed. The ship was not advertised as magic, but it was spoken about as if scale itself could defeat danger. Passengers boarded into a world of polished decks, crowded steerage spaces, wireless messages, cargo, lifeboats, and Atlantic weather. 4 days later, that confidence met ice in the dark, and the most famous passenger ship in history became a field of evidence scattered across water, testimony, and memory.
Titanic was part of a race in prestige more than a race in pure speed. The White Star Line wanted size, comfort, and reliability. The ship carried wealthy travelers, immigrants, crew members, postal workers, engineers, cooks, stokers, musicians, and families beginning or ending different lives. That mix matters because the disaster was not one story. It was many social worlds stacked inside one hull, all depending on the same steel plates, rivets, compartments, and human decisions.
The iceberg warning story is often repeated too simply. Wireless messages about ice did reach the ship, but they entered a busy communication system handling navigation, passenger traffic, and routine Atlantic updates. Warnings are only useful when they change behavior. Titanic continued its speed through a region where ice had been reported. The failure was not that nobody had heard of ice. It was that information, confidence, procedure, and urgency did not align before the collision.
At 11:40 at night on April 14th, lookouts saw the iceberg ahead. Officers ordered evasive action, but the ship struck along the starboard side. The damage did not need to tear the ship open like a dramatic wound. It only had to compromise enough compartments to exceed the design assumptions. Water entered silently at first, then relentlessly. A ship can be doomed before most passengers understand that anything irreversible has happened.
The compartment design gave Titanic real safety advantages, but not enough for the pattern of flooding it suffered. Watertight bulkheads did not rise high enough to prevent water from spilling from one compartment into the next as the bow sank. This is a central lesson of the disaster. A safety feature can be impressive and still be insufficient. Engineering does not fail only when there is no protection. It can fail when protection is matched against the wrong scenario.
The lifeboat problem became one of the most painful facts. Titanic carried more lifeboat capacity than regulations required, but far less than needed for everyone aboard. Regulations had not kept pace with ships of that size. Some boats left without being filled. Confusion, class barriers, crew interpretation, and disbelief shaped who reached the water and who remained on deck. The arithmetic of survival had been written before the iceberg appeared.
Wireless distress calls helped save lives because the Carpathia responded and steamed toward the coordinates. Other ships and stations received fragments of crisis and dots and dashes. The wireless record is crucial evidence because it shows the disaster becoming known beyond the horizon while passengers still waited in darkness. Modern rescue depends on communication, but communication cannot erase distance. Help was coming, and help was too far away.
As the bow dropped, the angle of the ship changed the meaning of every space aboard. Corridors became slopes, staircases became barriers, machinery spaces flooded, lifeboats lowered into cold air. Families made decisions under pressure that nobody should have to make. The ship's lights remained visible for a time, making the scene more haunting. People could see order, luxury, and electric modernity, while the physical structure beneath them was failing.
The breakup of the ship was debated for decades because many early accounts were simplified or doubted. Survivors had described sounds, angles, and separation, but public memory often preferred a single intact sinking image. Later wreck evidence confirmed that the ship broke apart. That matters because survivor testimony and physical evidence eventually met on the ocean floor. The wreck did not replace human memory. It helped correct what official narratives had made too neat.
More than 1,500 people died. The number is enormous, but the pattern of death is also important. Third-class passengers, crew, men, and people far from boat access suffered heavily. Survival was shaped by location, information, mobility, language, class, gender norms, and timing. The disaster was therefore not only a collision between steel and ice, it was a social system under stress, revealing who could move, who was believed,
and who was delayed.
The Carpathia arrived after the Titanic had gone. Its crew pulled survivors from lifeboats in the cold morning. The rescue images and survivor lists became evidence of absence as much as survival. Lifeboats arrived with empty seats, grieving passengers, and stories that did not fit heroic simplicity. The sea had hidden the ship, but not the questions. Why so few boats? Why such speed? Why such confidence? Why did class and procedure matter so much at the edge of death?
Inquiries in Britain and the United States gathered testimony from crew, passengers, experts, and company officials. Those records remain one of the richest archives of the disaster. They show contradiction, defensiveness, technical detail, grief, and attempts to translate chaos into policy. The inquiries did not make everyone agree, but they changed the future. Lifeboat requirements, wireless watch rules, ice patrols, and maritime safety expectations were strengthened because Titanic exposed gaps too large to ignore.
Photographs of Titanic before sailing are not decorative. They show the scale and confidence that the disaster destroyed. Images of the ship under construction, at dock, and in public imagination reveal a machine meant to represent control. Passenger lists, lifeboat photographs, newspaper pages, and inquiry records show the human and administrative aftermath. Each artifact answers a different question. Together, they prevent the story from becoming only a myth about an iceberg.
The wreck discovery in 1985 transformed public understanding again. Cameras found the bow and stern separated on the seabed, surrounded by debris. The images were powerful, but they also raised ethical questions about memorial, salvage, tourism, and ownership of tragedy. A wreck is evidence, but it is also a gravesite. Titanic forces viewers to ask how much looking is necessary for history, and when looking becomes consumption.
Titanic remains famous partly because it joins opposites, luxury and terror, confidence and error, technology and nature, regulation and loophole, private grief and public spectacle. That fame can make the disaster feel overfamiliar, but careful memory restores its sharpness. The ship did not sink because one thing went wrong. It sank because many assumptions were allowed to travel together across a cold ocean at night.
The final lesson is not that humans should fear every machine. It is that systems become dangerous when admiration replaces verification. Titanic had advanced features, skilled people, and real engineering achievement. It also had too few lifeboats, imperfect procedures, dangerous speed, and warnings that did not reshape action. The Atlantic did not care how modern the ship looked. Safety had to be real before the collision, not argued afterward.